All right. Well, welcome to the show today, everyone. Thanks for tuning in today. My guest today is Rob Reynosa, and 10 years ago, Rob was in a bad place. He was unfulfilled in his work, and his lifestyle was sending him down a path of self-destruction. At one point, he realized that if he continued on his current trajectory, he would end up either in jail or dead, which sparked the beginning of a transformation. Since then, Rob has been studying, applying, and fine-tuning personal development tools and metaphysical principles, which helped him drastically turn his life around from negative to positive, while experiencing profound spiritual and physical transformation, growth, and success. Rob has made it his purpose in life to create as much mental, spiritual, and personal freedom as possible for everyone who's committed to growth. Rob has so far helped millions of people from all over the world unlock their minds, unleash their potential, and create their lives by conscious design. He's the creator and founder of Think, There Is No Ceiling, which is a platform for achieving this purpose. He's also a business and functional mindset coach, writer, and speaker. I wanted to bring Rob on the show to discuss the principles he used that turned his life around, how other people can apply these principles to their own life, and how he grew his company Think. So, Rob, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. That was a great intro too. Appreciate it.
I appreciate that. Well, I thought maybe a good place to start would just be a bit about your background and your story. So before you started this whole journey of personal development and working on Think, what were you doing work-wise, and what was your lifestyle like? What were you up to kind of before all this?
Yeah, before all of this, yeah. Well, I was working at a job that was a well-paying job. It was actually a really good paying job, a job that people would consider you being crazy for leaving, and superior luck, like supremely lucky to have because of the pay, the benefits, and whatnot. I was just unhappy there, and I was married. I was father to my daughter, who was about 3 years old at the time. I was selling ecstasy at the time, doing drugs like crazy, drinking, going out and partying, being completely irresponsible with my life. But at that time, that's what I thought being a young 20-year-old was supposed to do, or like that was normal, it was a phase. So that's how my lifestyle was before all this happened, all the shift happened. Yeah.
And why was it like that? Like, why were you partying all the time? Why were you doing drugs? Was it literally just because you thought that's what you're supposed to do, or was there some deeper reason for that?
Looking back now, I mean, over the last couple of years, I realized that, at the time in that state of mind that I was in, it was just something that I was doing. It was I was chasing this feeling that I had, and I loved the feeling that these drugs had, and I couldn't operate without having my world or my reality experience some sort of shift in that way. And looking back now, though, I realized that I was just feeling a huge, massive void, and I was trying to mask everything that at the time I wasn't willing to face. So, there's all these things that were occurring within me and around me. My life, for one, it being not what I wanted, but not being willing to admit that's not what I wanted. And so instead, I was turning to substances. But like I said, in that moment, though, I was like, oh, well, the substances are awesome. They're great because they make me feel good. This lifestyle's fun, chasing the girls and doing all the stuff. But it was me being in an unknowing, ignorant spot. And then now looking back, I was like, well, that's why I was doing that, because I was unfulfilled in all areas of my life.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So at some point, you realized that if you kept up this trajectory, you're going to end up in jail or dead, as you said.
Yeah.
And can you describe how you managed to turn this around? Or was this a gradual shift where you sort of slowly started to realize that you need to make a change? Or was there one particular moment where suddenly it just clicked and you realized you need to change? Like, what was that experience like?
Yeah, it's kind of ironic because I knew that path that I was on, I knew the drugs that I was doing, I knew that lifestyle wasn't sustainable. And so when I was sober, I didn't need it to function all day long. It was basically going crazy on the weekends, and then it would dabble into the week. But I knew, though, that was not something that I was supposed to be doing. And the crazy part about that is, even though I knew that wasn't sustainable, and I knew that's not really entirely what I wanted, the pull from it was so strong that Imagine like you waking up in the morning and like you just wanting to sleep, right? Or your parents wake you up and they're like, "Hey, we have to go," and you're like, "I don't want to go, I don't want to go," and then they're dragging you out of the house. That's how I felt drugs were to me. They were dragging me out. And I was like, "I don't want to do it, I don't want to do it," and then I'm in the state and I'm doing it. I'm like, "Well, now I'm here already, so I might as well enjoy it." So that's kind of how that was. Where I knew I wasn't supposed to be doing it. I knew I didn't feel completely happy, but I still was. And back to like what you were asking, your original question. Sorry, can you repeat your question again? I got a little
Yeah,
bit.
absolutely. So I just was curious to know if this was a gradual shift or whether there was one single point that sort of tipped you over
Yeah.
to
So the
that
shift,
made you change.
right? The shift was occurring the whole entire time. Like it was just me knowing that I wasn't supposed to be doing that, but still doing it. And it wasn't until I want to say it was about 2013, I believe, maybe even 2012. The year it's a little bit foggy with the year, but I actually experienced almost an overdose, and I had done too much of one particular drug, coke, and I literally thought my heart was going to explode. Um,
Mhm.
Sweating profusely, like I had like this anxiety attack. I thought I was going to die, and I'm sitting there like on my toilet, not doing anything on the toilet, but just sitting on my toilet, breathing, panting, and I was just telling myself like I have to change, like something has to change. And in the meantime, I'm seeing these things around me, like energy shifting. Like I feel like there was something transforming within myself. Um, my interests were changing. My mental aspect, my mental perception was changing. There were a lot of changes happening, and I think I was doing more drugs around that time just to like push it all away because it was freaking me out. But I knew that something was trying to reach me, like something was trying to get me to wake up. That's the sensation I had. So it was in that moment where I thought I was going to die. I said, okay, I'm done. I'm done. Like, what are you trying to tell me? And I literally said, what are you trying to tell me? I'm ready. Just show me. Like my head's tingling as I'm saying that. And I swear it was like this like portal, this door that opened up and this information just came into me. I didn't know what it was. And all I can think was, I just want to be healthy. I just want to take care of myself. And like, I need to find out what this is about. And it was just this automatic shift. It was like day and night.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
amazing. It always seems to be like myself personally. I've never had any sort of near-death experience really, but it seems like a lot of the time that is a trigger point for change for people when they do sort of hit that point and they can kind of reassess like in that moment where their life they feel like it's about to end. It sounds like it was that sort of happened to you as well.
Yeah, and you know what's funny too is, and I say funny a lot, but I don't think it's funny. It's just part of the journey. I think the whole journey is just funny. It's just like this really interesting up and down journey. That wasn't the last time I ever used drugs. Like I fell back into that a few times. I went through these loops, and so for a moment though, for like a year, I was completely clean, taking care of myself, and then went back into it, and then it hurt even more because I was back in a place where I didn't want to be. And but it created this type of like callus, I guess you could say, around me where I was tougher this time. I knew how to get out of it, but it was just this reoccurring thing for a while. But yeah,
Mm, yeah. Well, that's an interesting point because I feel like there's a lot of people who do hit low points and they do want to change, or maybe they don't even hit a like rock bottom point, but they just know they have these bad habits they want to get out of them, start to get on a better path. And for whatever reason, they'll try to start like changing themselves, doing new things, but they end up falling back into the old bad habits, which just sounded like happened to you a few times over the when you first started this journey. So I guess can you think of any reason why for yourself you were eventually able to sort of escape that and start making these permanent changes? Like why do you think some people do just fall back into it and never really get out of it?
yeah. Well, I'm gonna be 100% honest with you, man. There's moments where I get these urges to do something different. Like it happens to me all the time. Like the urge to fall back into my pattern. It could be a small trigger. It could be a scent. It could be just a flash of memory. And like being in this place where I'm so aware of what's floating through my mind, like I can choose what I want to entertain and what I don't want to entertain. When I see those go by, it doesn't freak me out, but I start asking myself, why is that coming across right now? Like, I'm on such a good path right now. I'm shooting straight. Why is that coming across? And it happened today, as a matter of fact. Like, I'm just being 100% authentic with you. It happened today. And I was taking a shower at my gym, and boom, it flashed. And I asked myself, what's missing right now? There's something missing because this is trying to fill a space. Like, that's my awareness of what that is. And part of me was saying that you need to be more precise with where you're going, like get more precise. And I link my lack of creative expression to a void that needs to be filled. And so I'm asking myself now, what do I need to turn up? I need to turn up something. Do I write more? Do I get on lives more? Do I reach out to more people? So I feel like, to answer your question, I feel like when you have a void, when you're not being yourself, and in the sense that you're not expressing who you really are, you're looking for a space, or you're looking for something to fill that. So a filler, essentially. And until you fill that space, you're going to look for something else to fill it. And based off of what you've done in the past, you're going to go back to doing that. So if it's shopping, you're going to go crazy shopping. If it's looking for the opposite sex or a person that you're interested in, or that type of person, you're going to look for that to fill it. You get what I'm saying? If it's food, if it's music, if it's whatever. And so for me, it's been drugs. And so I don't want to go do drugs. I don't want that, but I'm just aware of those flashes that come in. And I use that. Like, I don't beat myself up over it, like saying, oh, well, you know, like, I'm thinking about it. Like, that's worse than actually doing it, or that's the beginning of a relapse. Like, no, it's not. It's your self telling you, fulfill yourself. Go do something about that. Here's your little trigger. Here's your little sample. Go do something about it. So that's what, to answer your question again, that's what I feel. That's why I think people go back into their habits or fall back into that, is because of that. And they don't move forward. They don't commit to something because they haven't found something yet that's fulfilling them.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. So you're still getting those kind of, not necessarily urges, but you're getting those small triggers, but now you're able to kind of look at them objectively and see what they actually mean. Like, what's the deeper meaning of what I need to do to get rid of this, rather than just the impulse of, yep, let's go do some coke.
Yeah. Yeah, and the urge wouldn't even be necessarily to go do coke right now. It'd be like, let's go hang out with some people and go drink. And let's go now to make plans to do something like a nightlife type scene. Let's go do it. It starts in little increments, and then it builds and it builds and it builds. And so I know myself well enough. Like, don't even dabble in anything. Like, just stay focused on what you're doing. Like, you have to be able to not even sacrifice, but just give up the old to have the new. I know that. Yep. You know what I mean? And so when I see those flashes, it's like, what are you're lacking somewhere? Fill it. Like, you fill your own cup. So yeah.
I love it, man. That's good insight. So what were some of the things you started doing once you decided you needed to change and you started working towards improving yourself, working on yourself, trying to kick these old bad habits? Can you give a few examples of some of the things you discovered, some of the things you were starting to work on, just some at that period of your life? What were you doing?
Yeah. So in the very beginning, when I first made that first step, that first transition, I became obsessed with meditation. Didn't know how to meditate, didn't reach out to anybody. I didn't even know anybody to reach out at that time too, because at that time, like, nobody was going through a spiritual awakening. It was like 2012, I want to say. There was nobody to talk to. Everybody that I would talk to thought I was crazy. So I turned to meditation. I just went within. And the books that I was being led to, being drawn to, it was all saying the same thing: go within, go within. So I was like, well, I mean, there's only one thing left to do, is to try it. And so I just started meditating, and that changed everything. I was meditating 3 times a day, in the morning, in the afternoon, and at night. And it was only for 5 minutes at a time, and then it built up to about a half hour each time. And then I started using meditation as an escape. And then I caught myself using it as an escape, and then kind of, went back a little bit and whatnot. But that was one of the new habits that I was using. Also, I think I was probably in the best shape of my life at that time. I committed to a routine, waking up at 5 a.m, running on the beach. It's funny because when I share this story too about running on the beach, they're like, why do you like running on the beach? Is it like the sand or whatnot? I'm like, nah, man, it's the stars. At 5 a.m, you can't see anything else but the stars, and I feel connected. People would always say, like, you're too deep, bro. Like, you're too deep. This is too much. Like, but that's the truth, though. So there were
Yeah.
these new routines that I was setting up for myself with my health and fitness, my eating. I was starting to juice now at that time, so juicing every day, working out, meditating, reading everything I can get my hands on. So it
Mm.
was just a total lifestyle shift, just committing to bettering myself.
Mm. I love that. Speaking of meditation, what is meditation to you? Like, has that, I'm sure it might have evolved since when you first started doing it, but I guess like how do you define meditation and how does it specifically help you?
Yeah, dude, it's a journey,
Mm.
man. It's a journey. It's like living a double life. Like you have your physical life that you're participating in, this human life where you and I are talking, and everybody else around us, and then you have this other life, like the real you, that's tapped into everything. And meditation to me is about establishing that connection to your true self, and then lifting, not even lifting the layers, because when you're there, you're not doing anything. You're just being present to yourself, and by being present, you're just becoming aware of all these stories and layers and patterns that are there, and just things happen. So meditation to me is all about building a relationship with your true self, and then just going on a journey with whatever comes up, with whatever you find, and then loving that part of yourself. So
That's awesome.
thanks.
What's some advice you would give to someone if because meditation is quite a like hot topic at the moment, I guess. Like a lot of people are talking about it. A lot of people are saying they get a lot of benefit from it. So if someone's listening to this, if they've heard a lot about meditation, and they want to give it a try, but they're not sure where to start, would you have any advice for that person?
Yeah, definitely. Um, as far as like how to go about it.
Yeah, how to go about it, how to
Yeah,
make the most of it.
so what I would really highly recommend is doing it in the morning when you first wake up, because it's the easiest. Your mind's not racing and like jumping around and everything at that point. So, or like right when you wake up, go to the restroom, do your thing, and then come back and then sit on a comfortable chair. Don't put your back against the chair, because then you'll fall back asleep.
Mm.
And just be comfortable. Like there's no right or wrong way to really do it. It's just be comfortable. Put your palms down, feet down, be grounded. Set an intention, and what that means to me is, as far as setting an intention goes, is it could be as simple as just to be peace, or to be open, or what I always like to say is to connect with the highest part of myself. So I set the intention. I'll say in my mind or out loud, I set the intention to connect with the highest part of myself, or to align with perfect love, because in my mind, what that means is that I'm aligning with what I want and not what I don't want. So a lot of people say, put this block around you, or put this this energy field around you to protect you. And then I like to say, if you're protecting yourself, you're coming from fear. If you're aligned with love, you're going exactly for what you want without worrying about protecting yourself. These are little tidbit things I share with my clients all the time that really make a big difference. So it's just about being comfortable, sitting down, setting your timer to maybe 5-10 minutes, depending on what you want to do. I always say just start with 2 minutes. Just commit to 2 minutes. Put that phone on silent, but where you can hear your timer, put it somewhere else, and then just sit there and breathe. Breathe in through your mouth, or in through your nose. I'm sorry, in through your nose, out through your mouth. I always like to look in the direction of my third eye, and I always put my tongue on the bridge of my mouth, because if you don't, you'll end up drooling. So like I always put it at the bridge of my mouth and just kind of tilt back, smile a little bit, and then just breathe in and out. Just focus on your breath. Every single time your mind trails, which it will, that's what meditation is. The meditation, like the true process of that is catching yourself, becoming aware of that mind that's going. And then, oh wait, I was thinking about 10 different things, and then having a mental argument with somebody, bring it back. Boom. Mind goes again. So that's my advice for meditation.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And be patient.
Yeah.
God, be patient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I've heard it said that when your mind wanders and you bring it back, a lot of people think that's like a failure, and to meditate they need to sit there and not have any thoughts. But like you said, it's almost like every time your mind wanders and you catch it and you bring it back, that's like doing one rep of like a weight in a gym. So it's like that's actually a good thing, because you're catching yourself, you're bringing it back, and that's the whole point of it. That's the practice. So,
I really like that analogy, man. I'm going to use that.
Yeah,
I like it a lot.
Go for it. Yeah, that's So you wouldn't recommend it for someone starting like any like apps or anything? Just set that intention, sit there, just commit to a few minutes to begin with. Just breathe, be conscious, and just be aware when your mind wanders, and bring it back. And that's kind of a good starting point.
Yeah, you can use. I mean, you can use it whatever you want. I mean, I'm old school just because I learned without using anything at all. And there's an app that my girlfriend uses. I tried it one time and I couldn't handle it. I was like, I like to do it myself. I like to like deal with what I have here, not listening out here.
Yeah.
And I've done a bunch of guided meditations before, and they've helped. Guided visualizations too, and they've helped tremendously. My theory on that though is, what if technology all of a sudden doesn't work for the day? What if your phone dies? What if like all these circumstances happen and you're so used to this anchor, you're so used to like using this crutch where like you're now having to go within and use yourself, but you can't because you're used to using this technology or something outside of yourself. I'm all about using what you have within, and then it creates and manifests out here. I go within before I go out here. Does that make sense? So I mean, people can use whatever they want. The same thing with theta beats, with or not just theta beats, but binaural beats. Love binaural beats. I love what they do. They do actually work. They do help. I've experienced tremendous results from them. And at the same time, I like to try to create those beats in my head, whether it's with chanting or with doing a mental chant. It's just as effective as actually saying Om. It's super effective. So people can do whatever they want, but I always like to do the old school way.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's good insight. So tell me about think. There is no ceiling. What is that, and how did that come about?
Man, dude, I don't even know, man. Sometimes I don't even know what it's about. I'm just like, it's so crazy because I was winging it for a long time in the beginning and just allowing source to move through me and to guide me. I've given up so many times on that thing on think, and it just keeps coming back. And I never even quite got away from it. Like it's always there. But when I was on this heavy duty mission to find my purpose. Again, reading all these books. I mean, I'm obsessed with books, and I'm reading everything, whether it's on PDF, whether it's on hardcover or the paperback, and reading. And I'm like, I need to find my purpose. Like I felt so empty inside, and I needed to find out, like, what am I supposed to be doing? Like, what am I here for? I know I'm meant for something bigger. And so I'm writing down my intentions every single morning. I'm visualizing being in alignment with my purpose. I don't even know what that looks like. But I was just so set on this is what I need. Like, this is what I want. And it was almost like the desire was similar to like drowning and you wanting air, you wanting oxygen. Like that's the feeling I needed. Even being upset at night, like crying sometimes, like not knowing why I'm here. Like I felt lost. And so I'm training jiu-jitsu. This is back in 2012-ish, 2013. That whole time frame is just crazy. All this craziness stuff's happening. I'm leaving jiu-jitsu practice and I'm driving in my car, and usually after jiu-jitsu, I'm so like exhausted and tired that like the only thing that works is my mind. Like that's the only thing that's working. My hands don't work, my arms don't work. I can just barely drive home. And I'm listening to this song by Jay-Z, and this song comes up, and it's called Fuck Up the World, which is ironic, right? And in this lyric, he says something like, we keep topping what we top, and we've yet to see a ceiling. And I heard that, and I'm like, we've yet to see a ceiling. I'm like, damn, that's profound. Like you keep topping what you top, and there's no end. Like, where does it end? I'm like, damn, that's really cool. That's like being infinite, like an infinite being. And I'm just like, I'm just playing with it. I'm like, and the more I thought about it, the deeper it like was just going deeper and deeper into my heart. And like now, 2 hours later, it's burning like a hole inside of me. And I'm like, what is this about? Like I had never felt a feeling like that before, except when I was first going through my awakening. And so I go home and I look up, I'm like, this reminds me of The Matrix. Have you seen The Matrix before?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the part where the boy says there is no spoon, and he bends the spoon, and Neil's like, wait, how'd you do that? And he's like, you don't bend the spoon, but you bend your mind around it. And so I look up there is no spoon, and I'm like, damn, this sounds really parallel. It sounds very familiar. Looked up the domain, there is no ceiling. I was like, it's available, like might as well, and I'm buying domains like crazy at that time just because I'm like, I know that I want to do something with that on the online world or build something. And so from there, like that was history. Like it slowly but surely kind of came to me in different ways as far as like what there is no ceiling meant. The more I thought about it, the more I was reflecting on myself, like, how am I like this? Because I know I'm an infinite being, or I kept reading about how we're infinite beings, but I mean, I'm gonna die eventually, so I'm not that infinite. And I wasn't in touch with my true self yet. I was still like operating from the physical purely. You know what I mean? And then the acronym, I'm like, well, it has to have a cool acronym. And I was going with TINC, T-I-N-C. I'm like, that's just stupid. I can't do TINC. I'm running now on the beach. You know, this is like maybe 7 months later. Haven't done anything with it. And it just hit me. I'm like, hey, think. Like TH in there, and then is no ceiling. Think. I'm like, oh my God. I wasn't even a mile in. I turned back and I ran home just so I can write like what this meant to me. I want to say 3 days later, I went and saw this woman who does angel card readings, kind of like tarot readings. And she gave these angel card readings. And she told me, she's just like, and I actually went there to get a tarot reading. And as I paid for it, the lady told me, hey, this woman's not in, but this woman's in, and I swear you'll like it. You know, it might be aligned with you. I said, all right, cool. Went and did it. Long story short, we're both crying. And she's telling me, she's like, you better commit to figuring out what this thing is about, you being an artist. And I'm like, I'm not an artist. I swear I'm not an artist. I'm not even creative. She's like, you are an artist. You're creative. Start doing something. Start writing. Tell that mind of yours to go to the corner of the room and just write. And then that's when I started writing. And that was 2014, I believe. And so I like started writing 4 years ago. And that's been one of the major shifts in my life, is writing. And I use that as an instrument to connect with people. And it's just to express whatever's there. Like I have no agenda as far as, you know, I want people to like me, or I hope that people, you know, will look to me a certain way. It's like, what needs to come out? And so that's been my whole approach from the beginning. And then as it evolved, I realized that I have something here. Like I have something big here, like something bigger than I can even comprehend. And all of a sudden I had the desire to coach people. So I started coaching people at a stupid low price, and just so I can have the experience. And then it started building and building and building, and then it fell away, and then it came back. And it wasn't until about much recently where I committed full on to being full-time functional mindset coach. And then that's when things started really happening in the business aspect. So Think overall has been like a kind of like a hub, like a tool to help me refine myself and redefine myself. But it's also been this tool for, I don't even know how many people worldwide, but apparently a lot of people have related to it and the message it shares and what it means to them. But overall, what is Think? To me, it's a brand that represents consciousness, and not just consciousness, because everything's consciousness, but it's a certain type of consciousness. It's like really connecting with who you really are, and then using whatever you find and then expanding that, whether it's turning that into a business, making an impact in the world. But really, there is no ceiling to that. Like once you realize that you're this infinite being, that there's everything available to you within yourself, there is no limit to that. And so it's about tapping into that. So instead of looking out, you look in. Instead of trying to find these things that fill you, you realize that it's your mind that has you full. It's everything that's in here. So it comes down to how you think, how you process, how you perceive, the intentions you set, the visualizations you do, the habits you create. It's all about how you think. And then there's no ceiling to that, you know? So that's kind of in a nutshell what Think is all about.
I love it, man. That's awesome.
I went somewhere else when I was talking, man. That wasn't even me.
that was amazing. And I think it's cool that it's because you didn't set out to be like, all right, I want to create this business which is going to generate my income, blah, blah, blah. It was, I need to do this. I need to create this platform as a way to share and connect with people and sort of help myself as well as other people. And then it kind of just grew from there. I think that's the best way. It's like the business side of it is almost like the side benefit. The main benefit is just it's helping you, it's helping other people. Which is a cool thing. So I love it.
Thank you.
And going back to, there's a few things I want to ask from that story. So you mentioned that you thought that you weren't a creative person. So you weren't a writer, you weren't a creative. That wasn't something you identified with, but obviously a lot of the stuff you're working on now does require a lot of creativity, all the writing you do, all the stuff you're putting out. So How did you develop that creativity to the point where you are now? Like, because you didn't identify with it, but now it's pretty hard to refute you are a creative person now. So,
Yeah.
what caused that change, or how'd you
Yeah,
develop
well,
it?
yeah, well, I mean, it started off with just doing it. It started off with setting time aside every single day and writing every single day. I I was terrible. First of all, I did not get good grades in school. I hated school. So needless to say, I didn't write. Like when writing assignments were due, I would have somebody else do it or I would copy somebody else. So like I already had defined myself as somebody who wasn't intelligent, somebody that wasn't creative, somebody that was a failure. So all of that, like all of that story was still there. But it was just this feeling that I had to do something. I had to get this out. Like I got what I asked for, which was my purpose, which was still like in the air. Like what's think? Like I don't know what to do with that. When people would ask me, I would give them like, oh, it means this, it means that. Like this is actually a fine-tuned example of, or a description of it. But I just got into the habit of writing every day, and in the beginning, you know what's crazy, man? Like it wasn't until 2 years ago that my former partner, my former girlfriend, probably about 2.5 years ago, she said that. What did she say? She's like, "You're like a not Edgar Allan Poe, an author, an old school author." She's like, "This is what you remind me of." I'm like, "What? Are you kidding me?" And I believe everything she tells me because she was always 100% real with me. And so when she said that, I'm like, man, maybe I really am a good writer. And this is 2.5 years ago, man. This is not that long ago. But it was the habit of staying consistent with writing every single day. And the distinction between me not being creative and being creative was understanding that whatever comes out of me is perfect, no matter what. It's perfect. And it kind of like, so like I would always tie it with, well, it's not you that's really saying it because you're getting yourself out of the way and you're allowing source to move through you. And so I was like, well, if somebody doesn't like it, then all I have to do is say it was source. Source did it. Intuition did it. You know what I mean? And so I kind of like played this mental game with myself in the beginning to like release my fears about being judged, and to release the stories I have about being creative and whatnot. And I got them. I got them like crazy. People were criticizing me, judging me. This is stupid, you misspelled this, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, whatever, man. Like I just kept doing it. And it was just, like I said, repetition. And then that distinction, which I think is so powerful, is understanding that creativity is not about what you're doing and what I'm doing. It's not about this physical body. It's about giving up my hand. It's about giving up my mouth. It's about giving up this physical body to whatever this is operating around us and using it. Like not even using it, allowing us or allowing myself to be used by that. Whether it's universe, the God, whatever, it doesn't matter what it is, but it's something that when it moves through, like you can't deny it. It's pretty damn powerful. And so it was about getting myself out of the way. So creativity, again, it's about getting yourself out of the way and then just allowing whatever's there to move through you and then being okay with it. Like being okay. And that, I feel, my friend, is like when you can get in touch with that, that's your heart coming out. That connects with other hearts. And it connects with the right hearts. And it doesn't matter who else it connects with, just with the right people. So
That's awesome, man. That's such a good point because it really is just people are in their heads too much. Like they tell themselves stories like you were telling yourself that you're not a creative person, you were not good at school, you didn't like writing. And that just carries over, and it's just this mental block that you're creating just to stop yourself from expressing what's actually inside you. So just getting out of your own way and just letting stuff happen, and just, as you said, doing it every day. Just putting that time aside just to do it, even if you don't want to, even if you don't feel like it at the time. I think that's really important. So I think that's a good lesson that people can take there.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you started to, when you first started doing this, you started to get a lot of judgment from people. And I think this is another interesting area because so many people feel like they have something inside of them that they want to bring out, but they're just afraid of getting judged by people, really, like their friends, their family. Because what always happens is when you sort of start to change yourself and you start to go down a different path, it always makes other people uncomfortable, and they sort of try to bring you back down. And so that stops a lot of people from even starting in the first place. So can you give any specific examples of ways that people were like judging you or like criticizing you when you started doing this, and then maybe how you overcame them?
Yeah, totally. And if anybody hears this that are my friends from the past, or we don't talk anymore, like understand that like there's no hard feelings like at all. It's just one particular story stands out to me when you were asking that. So one of my friends who knew me, who knew the old Rob, we'll just call him Vegas Rob. That was Vegas Rob back in the day. When I first started writing and putting out this material, I remember getting a text like, "Hey, like, who do you think you are?" What? What do you mean? They're like, this isn't you. Like, this is somebody else. Like, you're not this type of person. And I said, I've been changing a lot, man. Like, I'm reading, books, and I'm educating myself, personal development. And this person went on to say something about but you don't even know, like, you don't even read like that, or you don't even think like that. Like, this isn't really who you are. And I sat there with it, and it kind of bugged me a little bit. I'm like, man, this is what I was. Like, this is who I was before in the past. Association with that too. And I'm like, this is like making me even more hungry to pull away from that and to really, really recreate myself in that moment. So, comments like that, being judged for that's just a comment from, or that's such a judgment coming from the transition from old self to new self. And that happens all throughout our life. I can only speak to how old I am now, but from my past, that happens all the time. Like, we're always going through those cycles. You'll always get people that say, "You've changed. What's going on?" And it could be a year that passed. It's like, yeah, we're all changing, but that's part of the transition. In relation to my creativity, there's people that get offended because when I write about, as far as like, you're the source of all creation, they're like, well, it's not my fault that this happened to me, or it's not my fault that this person broke up with me. I'm like, okay, well, it really is, but I mean, if you think it's not, then this is where you're at, and it's fine. So there's people that judge me for things that I say in that way. One thing that like I used to get so annoyed of was misspelling words, and I just did it again like 2 days ago, and I'm taking responsibility for it, but I give the credit to like my lack of sleep, and I spelled a very simple word wrong. Damn, I put 2 M's on it. I didn't catch it till later on, but like little critiquing from certain people on that. It's been a while since people actually criticized me for that. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say something about that too, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
I feel like the more people criticize you, the more you experience criticism from people on your creativity. It has a lot to do with your insecurity about your creativity. It has to do with that self-talk, that self-dialogue you're experiencing within yourself. There's a relationship to that, or a relation to that, your interior to the exterior world. That's just my theory on that. I'm like, wow, when I was in those places where I was unsure of myself, unsure of my message, I was getting a lot more people that were telling me, "You suck, you need to stop," or "Who are you? Who do you think you are?" I mean, it just matches. It matches it perfectly. Just recently, last weekend, and there's a guy, one of my training partners, he had mentioned, he's like, man, he's like, oh, did I lose you? Oh, I thought
yeah, just for a second. Yeah.
He had mentioned something about like my content, about, he just kind of asked like about the cursing. He's like, why do you curse so much? And when he asked me that, I just said my response. I said, well, it's just who I am. It's just my expression. Nothing was taken personally. We were just having a conversation. He's like, all right, cool. Went into more depth about it. He's like, yeah, man, I just feel like it cheapens your message, dude. Like, you have a great message. It just kind of cheapens it. All right, man, thanks. I really appreciate you saying that, man. And I get feedback like that all the time, like little things here and there. But I don't see it as like judgment. It's just kind of like that's where people are at, as far as that goes. But somehow, or for some reason, what he said, it sat with me and it landed. And I kept playing with it. And I became super conscious of it, as not self-conscious, but conscious of what was coming out of me. And it wasn't until last night it clicked. And my daughter and I were having dinner in Santa Monica, and there was this group of kids next to us. They were probably like maybe 12 or 13. They were dropping F-bombs, like saying all these curse words. And I'm like, that's probably how I sound. And that sounds stupid. And I'm like telling my daughter, you better not talk like them. Like, don't ever talk like them. And so like it clicked. I was like, you know what? I'm going to speak my truth, but come from a different place and not just clean it up a little bit, come out a little bit cleaner. And that was the last time. That was just recently. That was this past weekend where somebody said, hey, this and this about my content. And then it turns out this guy's in marketing, and he's been into marketing, so he actually knows what he's talking about, which is why my intuition felt right about that. But yeah, to answer your question, that's kind of some stories that have happened, and then the very recent one. So
yeah, it's good to share them, because a lot of people, they might feel like they're the only one who gets judged when they're trying to do something new. So it's good to know that it happens to everyone, and it's just one of those things you kind of have to push through and overcome. And then it's the same with like when I started doing all these videos, and not so much with the podcast, but like when I started doing videos, same thing. People are like, "Oh, you're like a life coach now, are you?" And like saying all this kind of stuff like that. And then you just kind of got to just put your head down and just do it. Because now no one says that. Maybe some people say it, but not to my face. And it's kind of just like, you just got to keep going. So I get that.
Yeah, my as a matter of fact, one more quick little story. My family, they weren't too fond of me going into this field and doing this. And this is while I had a job. I'm like pushing, grinding, like trying to figure my life out that I wanted to build and whatnot. And my family would make remarks like, "You're a coach? Like they trust you to coach them? Like you barely got through school. Like you did all this stuff. You blah blah blah. Like you're gonna screw them up even worse than they are." I know, right? Like the true story. Like they were saying that, and it wasn't until I owned the fuck out of it. Like, yeah, I am a coach. I am helping these people. I'm helping them create breakthroughs they never thought that they could ever. This never existed in their realm of reality. Yeah, that's who I am. And then they stopped saying stuff. So they're like, "Oh yeah, he's." So it's until you own it, man. Like once you own it, they're gonna be telling you stuff, and you're like, "Yes, yeah, I am actually, yeah." And I think maybe I am screwing them up worse. I probably am. It's just joking back.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's good advice. So, what's the most rewarding part for you for all the work you do with Think? Is there any specific things that happen as a result of all the stuff you put out that really just bring you the most fulfillment and reward?
Yeah, well, aside from being able to have more options as far as creating my lifestyle, like the lifestyle I want, that exchange, like being able to have that exchange is pretty cool, pretty awesome. Like I said, that didn't come until much later. But the initial feedback and response that I was getting, like that fulfillment, whatever you want to call it, it really came from people just saying how much my writing has impacted them, or what my message has done for their lives. And for a while, I was just like, what? Like, I would save them in the beginning because I still save them actually now. I try to save them. But it just didn't make sense to me. Like, how? Like, what did I write that changed your life? Like, I would ask questions like, how? But then what happened? And then what happened? Like, wow, you really did that because of what I wrote? That's insane. So the reward, I've had so many different types of rewards, but the one that still gets me is like, yeah, man, like I actually was on a track or on a trajectory for my life being this way, and I totally changed it because of you. I even like feel like this emotion wanting to come up just talking about that, because I'm like, I know what that's like to be on a path and then like have it change because of something you read in a book or some talk you heard, or just being in a conversation with somebody else and like that one word triggers something. So like I know what that's like, and so when I hear other people say that, it just moves me. So
yeah, man, that's awesome.
Go back.
Yeah.
Go back in. All right, go back in.
No, I love it, man. And thanks for sharing that. And yeah, it sounds like, yeah, I was reading some pretty incredible things that people have said about you, like people saying they're on the verge of killing themselves even, and then they read your stuff and it sort of just brought them into a different state of mind that they were able to work through that. So yeah, it's awesome. It's really awesome. So congrats on all that. Yeah, and sort of changing the topic slightly here. Why do you want the Think logo to appear on all athletes' uniform in the 2028 LA Olympics?
Yeah. So when you see what's the brand you see on most uniforms all over the world? Like what is the brand?
Some sort of consumer brand.
Usually you see Nike, right? Like Nike's on everything. And what does Nike stand for? It stands for if you have a body, you're an athlete. Like you can be an athlete. It also stands for just do it. Like that's their motto. That's their logo. Just do it. My approach to that, like we all have a mind. We all have this mind within us, not the brain, but mind. It's two different things. And if we're able to access that mind and think from that space and really bring that down into our physical body, embody it and express that reality, there's no ceiling to that. So it all comes down to how you think. There's no limit. We're limitless. So like for me, it's like this link between the people who are the best at what they do and they're representing who they are. Not necessarily representing your country, but that's what's happening. But representing who they are, they put in the work, they believe they're the best. Like they already have to have this mindset that I'm the best and I'm gonna fucking kill it. Like I'm the best. I just feel like that just aligns perfectly, like with what the brand stands for and who they are. But it's not just for them; it's for people who have the mind, like just mind itself. And overall, like I said, think represents consciousness, and being able to have that logo, my logo, think on every single uniform just represents where we're moving as a race, which is to consciousness, which is to being more enlightened and awakened and aware of who we really are. And so, in short, that's why I want it on there. I mean, it's more of like a monumental thing where I'm like, man, if I can get there, that means I've made a dent in the universe. That means people now are aware a little bit more about who they are and like what's possible for themselves. Does that make sense a little bit?
Absolutely. I love it. How do you even go about starting to get the ball rolling on something like that? Is that still kind of in the planning stage, or are you actually sort of working towards that?
It's definitely in the planning stage. I'm more focused on building. Like it's one of those things where, like, I always share with my clients that, you always want to create your dream. Like you want to create your dream, not just like, like I want to have this type of lifestyle, but I want to build a planet. Like I want to have this whole world, and it should take you 3 lifetimes to achieve that. Meaning that a lot of the stuff that you want, you're not going to achieve it in this lifetime. Like Steve Jobs and Apple, he's passed away now. His brand lives on. People are still building it to what he imagined it to be. That's how I approach this too as well. It's like, I don't know if I'm going to experience it in this lifetime, but my goal is by 2028, when they're in Los Angeles, to have it on there. I don't know what to do, how to do it, but like I said, my focus is on building what I have now and just making sure I'm able to build my empire here. But that's something that, like, that's what's there. Like that's what's there. That's what I'm moving towards. So yes, to answer your question, it's still in the planning stages. Don't yet know how I'm going to get there, but I just know that's what I want for the brand itself. Yeah,
that's awesome, man. That's cool. I'm looking forward to seeing that. You've still got almost a decade to work it out. So I'm sure, I have no doubt that they'll be there.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm like looking forward to the day that I can call you up and be like, "Hey, James, it's on uniform. We're good to go."
Can't wait. Well, I wanted to pick your brain a bit on relationships, because I think there's a few interesting questions that I want to ask you, because as you alluded to earlier in the interview, you were previously married before you sort of went through this whole journey that you're on now, and you had a daughter. That's all right. It's not interrupting too much. So yeah, so you were married and you had a daughter with your partner that you're with in that marriage, and in 2012 you actually decided to end that marriage. So I was wondering if you could just explain what was the thinking behind that, and why'd you do it? Was it a hard decision to make? I'm just curious to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It was really hard to make. Yeah, that decision was super tough to make. And that's probably one of the hardest decisions I ever had to make. Beautiful daughter, beautiful former wife, people that looked at our life from the outside and thought it was perfect and ideal. They're like, wow, how could you ever do that? Like you had something good. Like that was the perfect everything. On the inside though, it was totally imperfect. I put her through a lot of shit, dude, too. Like I was not the, what do you call that? The poster child as a husband type thing. Like I was a douche before. And I take full responsibility for that. And she's an awesome human being, a great woman, a great mom. Oh my God, a great mom to our child. And at the time where I was at and where she was at, and I'll just speak for myself, where I was at, I was going from who I thought I was this Vegas Rob guy to all of a sudden now experiencing this transition from like being asleep to being now aware, or even like just bits and pieces of awareness coming through, and trying to figure out what to do with that. So the first thing that came up for me was like, wow, this whole life I've been living was a lie. Like everything I've been living up to this point was a lie. All my experiences were coming from ego. Everything I did was from ego. Now I'm like getting in touch with this true self, which it's different. Like it's totally different. Like it's a brand new me or a different me. And like, what do I do with it now? And one of the main things that kept popping up was my relationship with her. Synchronicity was coming up everywhere, like as far as like songs go, and these weird things that kept coming up where it was showing me to take a different path. Like just follow your heart. This is not where you're supposed to be at. There's really no area you're supposed to be at, but this is not what you're supposed to be involved with, this relationship with her. And I remember there was we hit this point where I moved out. I moved into my own place for like a month, and it was eating me up inside that like I was doing this to like my family. Like why am I doing this? Like this makes me even more of a douchebag to do this. And so I went back. We got back together. And of course, it wasn't the same. We were trying to make things work, and this like urge to just leave, to just go, to just create something new was there. And I was sharing that with her, and of course, like any person would react the way they would react. And I was just being open with her. And at the time, I had some new spiritual friends where like we both were like we connected with each other. Like, what's going on? Like, what's happening here? And there was this process of these relationships that were happening with these different people. And like I said, I put her through a lot of things in the past, and a lot of things had to do with other females, like other friends and stuff like that. So things that were not appropriate for the relationship. And this is the honest truth of what happened. So me having this relationship with this female, which was just totally, I don't know what the right word for it is, but there was nothing there. It was just we were connecting on this spiritual level. That was not okay with her. And so she gave me the ultimatum. She says, hey, if you don't let this go, we're done. And I was like, damn, that's what this is about now, or what it came down to. And like I said, the context for that, like I put her through a lot of stuff. So like, I get where she's coming from, like I totally get where she's coming from. In my mind, I was thinking, okay, well, like I'm not going to live a life with restrictions. Even though I know I'm coming from a good place and trying to figure myself out, I can't live my life with restrictions. And so I made the choice. I'm going to maintain this friendship. So lo and behold, like we go our own separate ways. 2 weeks later, this person disappears, like just goes back to wherever she's from. Never hear from her again. And it was so weird because I realized like, wow, it was more about the commitment to myself, commitment to my path. Like committing to this growth and this evolving that was going on. And it wasn't even about this person. It was just sticking to my heart. And yeah, and so like that was the hardest thing I have ever had to do. I'm like, wow, I'm gonna end up choosing a friendship over my marriage. And that's what I chose. Like I don't see it as a friendship. I see it as choosing my path. So yeah, I mean it's weird to say it now like that because it looks kind of weird, but like that's ultimately what it was about. And I still remember like her and I being face to face and like hearing her like eyelashes like flicker as she was blinking and just staring at each other dead in the eyes as I was asking myself, is this the right move to do? Is this right? And then just me being so sure of it, like this is what you have to do, and then just doing it and being scared to death, like fuck, what am I doing? Yeah.
Wow, it's a powerful story. And so, looking back now, it's fair to say that you're glad you made that decision.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I definitely am. 100% back myself up on that decision. What's happened for myself and my journey, I don't know if that would be fair to say. I would have had that, but my experiences have unfolded the way they have because I believe I committed to my path. And so since that moment, I've always committed to my path. Even me falling back into different cycles, it was always coming back to what are you committed to? Being in relationships that weren't for my highest good, I was able to walk away from those relationships and not stay in them because of some sort of attachment. I was like, you know what? I've done this before with somebody on this caliber or someone on this level of a relationship. I know what's best for myself, and I'm committed to developing myself. So it's all played out perfectly for how it's played out. Yeah.
That's great. Glad to hear. So when you first entered that, you didn't want to be in a relationship because you wanted to concentrate on yourself, start working on yourself. As you said, you kind of chose your own path, and that was kind of the way you were moving forward. And you wanted to work on the business and think and sort of build all that up. But you are now in another relationship with Angie. So I was wondering, can you tell the story of how you met, how you got together, and sort of how that came about? Because you specifically said to yourself like you weren't looking for a new relationship. So I'm just curious to hear that story.
I was actually like telling her stuff in the very beginning to hopefully like she would just kind of like filter me out so we wouldn't have to continue down the path. Yeah, because that's how like adamant relationship. I'm like, I don't want a relationship. Hey, by the way, I have a child. Oh, okay. I'm like, damn, she's okay. By the way, oh, holy shit. Okay, but yeah. So how we met? I have an online conscious community on Facebook called Conscious Creators, and it's just people from all walks of life in there. She was in that community. I was doing lives the time in that community. When I first revealed like my identity behind Think was right before I started that community. So it was only a couple of years ago. Until then, people thought it was a female running it because of the style of writing that was there. And she always thought it was a girl running it too, or a woman running that page or that account. And then when I came out, she had said that her former boyfriend actually had introduced her to my page years ago, and she had been following me for all this time. Back to where I started, she was in my community. Never really paid attention to her, but I shouted her out one time for a workshop she was doing, and just because like what she wrote was really on point, powerful writer as well. And I was like, wow, she's really great at expressing herself. Just wanted to show her love within the community. And, I'd see her from time to time on her page and whatnot. And after, I want to say it was like last September, not last September, but the September before, 2017, I had seen her online and something she had written again resonated. And I left a comment and I started reading more of her posts, and every single post was just resonating, hitting and hitting and hitting. I'm like, damn, like what is going on in her mind? Because I respect people who can write. I respect everybody, but I really appreciate people who can express themselves through the pen, through writing. So I messaged her and I said, hey, like I would really love to know like what you're up to, like how your business is doing. I'm just curious to know what's going on here because your writing is amazing. Like I'd love to connect. Simply business-like. And so we always make jokes. It goes down in the DM. Like it went down in the DM. But we set up a call and we got on a call and we hit it off. Like we just super hit it off right away. We got along really well. And not to sound too esoteric or like, the whole world of synchronization and spirituality, but that night I was showing her this pyramid that I had built. It was a steel pyramid that I had built. I used to do these experiments with these pyramids that are the exact dimensions to like the pyramids that are all over the world. And I was sharing with her some of the stuff I was doing with that. And so it was in my closet. I opened up my closet and I'm like, I turned the phone so she could see it. And she's like, is that a heart? I'm like, what? A pyramid is the shape of a pyramid. Is that a heart? So right above it, there was a heart that was created from the shadow, or there was a heart on the wall created from like the silhouette of my clothes, the way the light was hitting it. And instantly I was like, fuck, like, holy crap, what is that? And that was on a Friday or Thursday. 3 days later, I bought a ticket to go see her in Miami, which I didn't leave for another couple weeks. But I knew something was there and I had to figure it out. Like I had to know what was there. And so the rest is history, man. And that's been our sign. Like that's been our little like totem for our relationship is that heart. We'll see it everywhere together. And it's really cool. But that's how it all began.
That's awesome. I love it. So in your opinion, what are the situations where someone should be in a relationship and when someone should be on their own? Because you've kind of got, the relationship here and now is obviously, you kind of felt right. It's sort of, the two of you aligned on what you're doing. So, yeah, just curious to hear what you think are the situations where someone should be by themselves or when they should be in a relationship.
Definitely. Yeah, that can go a lot of different ways. For me, I felt like I needed to be in a relationship. I felt like I needed to be by myself, working on myself, was when I felt like I needed to be in a relationship. So when I was looking for a relationship, I knew that I needed to be solo because that need, that want was coming from lack. And so I would say if anybody, to who's listening here, to who watches this, if you feel like you need to be in one, you need to be by yourself, 100%. It's because like you're trying to fill something that's not there. You're trying to make up for it. I feel like when you're not looking for something, that's when the magic happens. Like when you're totally content with who you are, it's like, whoa, it just comes out of nowhere. But at the same time, it's like whatever you attract into yourself, like whatever you experience is perfect for your growth. So whether it's you're in a relationship and you've sought out this relationship, be prepared to be shown who you are through that person, whether it's your insecurities or them triggering something in you. Like it's all a reflection. It's a mirror game. But my opinion, or my opinion to your question, is just that it's, if you feel like you need something, you probably need the opposite. You probably need to go fill yourself up first. Quench your own thirst. When you, as far as being in a relationship, I don't know, man. Like sometimes I ask myself, like, should I be in a relationship? But I know though, I know where I stand with her. I know where we're at. And the only reason why I would ever why I question that sometimes, and it was more in the past, was when we had our turmoil, like our conflict. And at that point of our conflict, this is months ago, where I would like have this, like, I had this urge to run, to escape, because I wasn't able to deal with it in a way. And that's when I would question all of that. Like, I know for sure I want to be in a relationship with her now. But, we have those doubts that come up and come in. So I hope I answered your question. I really don't.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's great advice. When you're looking, when you feel like you need something, that's when you need the opposite. I totally agree with that. And I think it's good advice because people are just looking for that, something to fill that gap, fill that hole. And when you're doing that, you're coming from a place of lack, as you said. So definitely when it's what you always hear it when people stop chasing that relationship and they just focus on their own thing. And then that's when that perfect person suddenly seems to just appear. So I totally believe that.
Yeah,
It's
and
awesome.
just to add a little more value to that, what I realized for myself was when I was single, and then I would jump into like, wasn't really a relationship. I was more of like dating, in between. Like I went for like a 2.5 year span of like just being single, working on myself, and I knew that like when I got into a relationship or to like some sort of dating agreement or something, whatever you want to call it, I would see based off of who I was attracting. I knew that's where I was at. And if I wasn't in alignment with that, then I knew that I had to go back home and like do some work on myself, if that makes any sense. So
Yeah,
like,
that really makes sense.
yeah. So like so I have some personal friends who attract assholes all the time. Like they're females that attract assholes. Like, why do I keep attracting these assholes? Well, it's either because your self-talk is off, or you believe that's what you deserve and that's where you stay, or you get into these relationships because you're supposed to stand up for yourself and walk away. So like, there's a lot of different things there, which means you probably should go back to identifying what that is within yourself. So
I love
that's
it.
something that I learned about myself.
Yeah, it's almost like a barometer of where you're at in your own journey. If you're attracting lower quality people, then
Mm-hmm.
that's just a sign that you still got a way to go on yourself. I like that. That's cool. Have you ever felt like your relationship with Angie has ever slowed you down in terms of like the business or like your own growth, or is it a case of when you find the right person, they just accelerate all that? What's your thoughts there?
It's funny you asked that, man. It's funny you asked that because I was just expressing to her recently, I want to say about 2 weeks ago, because she asked me the same question. She said, do you think I've been slowing you down? And she's like, and don't tell me anything that has to do with like what you want. I want you to be honest with me. That's what I love about that relationship. We're just like so honest with each other and so real. It's just like, damn, like you can't get mad because like, they're coming from a good place, or we're coming from a good place. But when she asked me that, I really sat and thought about that. And I was telling her, I said, like I have slowed down like this past year, like last year with a lot of my content creation. Certain parts that I wanted to do, I didn't do because we were either in conflict, we were dealing with certain things that would affect my state. And I said, but overall though, it has built me into this more powerful person where I can help more people with the lessons that I learned and help me with the content I'm creating. So whether it's through my clientele or through my content I'm creating, it's given me this insight and this wisdom that I didn't have before. So it might have looked like I was slowing down, but it was really just building up for something better. And so that's kind of what yeah, it is interesting. Like I was able to look at it from that light in that moment too. Like that's something that I really like, I'm really good at, is seeing things from all different angles at once. So I don't say something I regret later. And that was the aha moment when she asked me that. And I was like, man, I'm really glad you asked me that, because I see it in this light. Like all of this was necessary to build me and to build something more powerful. So does that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. What do you think, how important is it? Because it sounds like both yourself and Angie both are really into personal growth and sort of working on yourself, and you both got your own things going on and constantly working on improving yourself. How important do you think it is for both partners in a relationship to be doing that sort of stuff, like working on themselves? Like, is it going to cause a problem if one person's really focused on growth and working on themselves and the other person's not? Have you given any thought to that?
Yeah, it will create some sort of tension for sure. Because you have one person who's like committed to bettering themselves, and the other person is just lazy and they don't want to do anything. Maybe they're just not into that. Maybe they're not lazy, but they're just not into developing themselves. Yeah, that creates tension. I've seen that happen. Like that, not with her and I, because both of us are equally hungry, and like we both can't shut up about like what we're doing with ourselves, and like that's something that we're both like, damn, I really appreciate that you have that. Like, yeah, you know, both of us feel reciprocal about that. But yeah, you start to, and I've had that in past relationships where you're so committed to a certain path where the partner says all you care about is think, all you care about is reading books, or all you care about is this. That person wasn't doing the same stuff. Like that person wasn't on their path and creating or recreating themselves. They were focused on other things, which is perfectly fine. So that does happen. That creates tension. It creates a little bit of sort of like jealousy or like a fear also as well when someone's growing and the other person feels like they're getting left behind. Like that happens too. So yeah, that's a natural occurrence for sure. When one person's moving in a higher direction or a different direction and they're developing themselves, and the other person's not, you're going to experience a little bit of tension. There.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you think it's a case of, if that happens in a relationship, those two people just aren't at the same stage where they can be together? Or do you think, like, let's say that if Angie wasn't sort of on the same path that you're on, like, sounds like she's really like motivated and committed to work on herself as well, but if she wasn't, would you feel like you would try to encourage that in her, or do you feel like it was wrong timing for the relationship?
Well, it's kind of, I don't know, I get what you're asking. In all fairness, like I feel like that's a scenario I'm trying to think back a scenario that I've had that with, because that would be more grounded in reality as far as that goes. I've tried, like, you know what? Perfect example. My ex-wife. Perfect example. So when I was into reading and on my path to developing myself, I would share these concepts or these things with her. And there was quite a few times, and like I said, this is not to knock her or to make her look bad. This is just where we were at in that time and space, which I may add, the current relationship she's in right now, he has really inspired her to read books, and she's on that journey of self-development now. So like it all played out. It's all great. It's all good. But in that moment in time, I would share things with her, and I would get feedback from her saying, is that all you're going to talk about? Like, that's all you ever talk about? Like, can't we just talk about something else? And I'm like, damn, like that's who I am now. Like, this is what I'm on the path on. You know what I mean? What path I'm on. So me trying to share the information and trying to change her was trying to make her into something she wasn't. Like, that's not what she was ready for. And so I was trying to force my expectations on her, which made more sense of like why we weren't meant to be together, or why we're not, at least in that time. So does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good example.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's what you said is absolutely true. It definitely does cause friction, and then I think the important thing is just not imposing, I guess, what your journey that you're on onto the other person, and then really it's, I guess, just to playing by ear to see if it is something that can play out.
Yeah, and sometimes, you know, people do have an interest in personal growth, but they have the habits though where it has them sitting on the TV and watching football all day and doing BS. You know what I mean? But like that doesn't mean like this. It's not a match. It just means like their priorities aren't lined up. But they can have a desire to grow. They're just not engaged in it. They're not really following through with it. And that's an opportunity for conversation, for communication. And if you're in a loving relationship, then that's the core of everything is communication. So that's something that can be communicated back and forth, you know. So
absolutely awesome. Well, you've dropped heaps of knowledge and value so far. We're sort of coming up on the tail end of the interview. Been some really good stuff. My brain's been churning over the whole time, just processing all the stuff we've been saying. It's been awesome. But few last quick questions. You mentioned that you obviously dived a lot into reading books and personal growth in that area. I'm curious, is there one particular book that you've read that's had a massive impact on the way you think, or like one particular takeaway from a book that you got that's just really changed your mindset or helped you out in a big way? Can you think of anything?
Yeah, I have 2 books, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
There's more, but there's a lot. There's 2 books that stand out. One of them I have right here next to me. It's called Feeling is the Secret by Neville Goddard. I don't know if you can see it or not because I can't see the reflection on my end, but Feeling is the Secret by Neville Goddard. Profound book. The other one, and it's slim too. The other one is called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. That one actually was the catalyst to me creating Think There Is No Sailing. It created the foundation. It literally set things in motion because of the content that it had. As a matter of fact, I was using the words the author Napoleon Hill had said was that our main goal should be an independent thinker, and it is to have a plan for ourselves, have some sort of direction, because if we don't, we end up being a drifter, which is being carried away by the forces of the world and not by who you are, but by everybody else's wants and needs. And so then that creates the habit of like stagnation and not doing anything. And so
just lost you there for a second.
Was what I'm sorry, what?
Sorry, Rob, just lost you there for about 5 seconds.
Yeah. Okay.
You're back. You're
back. I'm back. All right. So yeah, so that was what I was using as part of my branding in the beginning, was being an independent thinker. That's what you should strive for, and I still believe that. That's one of the main things I feel like everybody should embrace or embody, is like thinking for yourself. So yeah, so those are the 2 books: Feeling is a Secret and Outwitting the Devil.
Awesome. Good recommendations. I'll put them on the list.
Yeah.
And what's next for you? Coming up this year, obviously still working on Think. You got any big plans this year for that, or any other projects you're working on at the moment?
Yeah, so I've committed to writing 1,000 words. I'm going off of what I missed yesterday, so I have 2,500 words to write today, but I'm committed to writing 1,000 words a day. And that's all serving the purpose of coming out with a book this year. So awesome. Yeah, it's something that it makes me kind of like nervous even like talking about it, just because like I know I could do it, and I know whatever it is going to be perfect. But yeah, that's the plan. By June of this year, I plan on being complete with that. So That's the big plan for that.
That's awesome. Can you share anything about what it's about or anything like that?
I have no idea, man. Like I have really no idea what it's gonna be about. It's just the truth. What's coming through me though, like, because in the beginning, what I was writing was kind of like just like this flow, like this no structure type of flow. And then over time now, I would say for the last month and a half, it's had this really amazing structure to it where, you know, I'm paying more attention to what's coming out. I'm putting them in paragraphs. It's not just this blurb. And I've been writing a lot about time about your relationship to like your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, kind of like what I always write about, but on like a much deeper level. Really breaking down the distinction between emotion and feelings, breaking down the distinction between your brain and your mind. Sorry, my alarm's going off. I have a part there that's going off for. So breaking down the distinction between your mind and your brain, all sorts of different things. I'm just really going in depth about. And my intention for the book, though, is to create mental freedom with that. So however that looks, that's the intention.
I love it. So just letting it come out as it does. That's cool. Is there any way anyone can pre-order that, or should they just keep an eye on what you're up to for when you release more information about that? Or?
Well, definitely you can get on my email list, and that you can get on my website on thereisnoceiling.com. So www.thereisnoceiling.com, and there's a little icon that says vibes. I keep people posted up on what I'm doing through there and send out emails. Not really that frequently, but that's actually be picking up. As a matter of fact, you don't mind me announcing, this week I'm coming out with an online subscription program. It's called Mastery. And I'm stoked about that, man. I'm super stoked about that. So it's about mastering your mind, mastering your life. And there I'm going to be helping people develop habits, also conquering limiting beliefs. Kind of what I do in my coaching sessions, but on a more watered down version to get people prepared for something deeper and bigger. So awesome. A little more insight. I'm really targeting a lot that has to do with your sense of self-worth, sense of awareness of self, your relationship to like how secure you think you are, confidence, like I said, limiting beliefs. So it's going to be pretty damn amazing and powerful, life-changing.
That sounds awesome. And people can get more info on that on the website as well?
Yes, and just get on the mailing list. Just get on the email list.
Yeah. Awesome. What's any other good ways to connect with you or follow with you? Instagram or Twitter, Facebook, anything like
that? Facebook, if you look up Robert Reynosa on there. Also, I have my Conscious Creator community on Facebook. It's called Conscious Creators. And then Instagram on think_, and then even Rob Reynosa on Instagram with _ at the end as well. And then on my website as well, you can reach out to me there, or and that's with the Vibes newsletter. So like 7 different ways. Yeah.
Awesome. And I'll make sure we link all those different ways up in the show notes so people can easily access them. But last question, Rob, is there anything I haven't asked you or anything that you do want to make sure that you pass on to the audience before we finish up here?
Yeah. One thing that I'd like to say here is, if there's one thing that you do, if there's one thing that you get from this conversation, is understand that, first of all, you are a limitless being. There are no limits to you, which can kind of be a hard thing to kind of understand and really grasp. But the more you tap into meditation, the more you meditate and build that relationship with yourself, the more you'll realize how truly resourceful you really are. Meaning, you don't need to get from here, but just become more be from here. And then this out here will start to show you who you really are. So meditation is key. Using your imagination is key. And so that's actually what you'll find a lot in that book, Feeling is a Secret, is using your imagination, tapping into your true self. So that's it.
That's awesome, man. Well, guys listening, make sure you go check out Rob. He puts out some awesome writing. He puts out videos. He puts out Instagram content. Go check out his Instagram. It's a fascinating story, like from this whole conversation, where he was 10 years ago to how he's grown and developed over the past 10 years. There's probably some photos of Vegas Rob somewhere there in his Instagram. If you go check that out, you can see the full transformation. But yeah, Rob, thank you so much for agreeing to do this podcast. I really appreciate it. So much value in this. I'm going to be going back over and taking lots of notes from our conversation and putting them out for everyone. So again, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, James. Thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate you.
Awesome. And thanks everyone for listening, and make sure you go check out Rob and have a great day.